There's a mineral powder that costs $2 per pound and makes depleted, exhausted soil produce harvests so abundant that the farmers who first used it thought something had gone wrong. Not fertilizes it temporarily, not boosts it for one season, not requires monthly reapplication, rebuilds the biological engine of the soil itself from the root level up permanently, using a compound that volcanic eruptions deposited into ancient seabeds 60 million years ago. One application lasts a decade, possibly longer. Farmers in the Middle East have been applying it to the same terraced plots for 4,000 years, and those plots are still among the most productive agricultural land on Earth. A single 50-pound bag costing less than $30 treats a full quarter-acre garden plot. It rebuilds 70 trace minerals that modern agricultural soil has been stripped of over the past century of industrial farming. No synthetic chemistry, no petroleum derivatives, no proprietary blends, no monthly subscription. Just ancient volcanic mineral dust that the global fertilizer industry has spent decades making sure you never find. The mineral is called azomite. This is the story of the volcanic deposit that made ancient civilizations food secure for millennia, and that the fertilizer industry buried beneath a century of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium dependency. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell right now. This is where we dig up exactly what they spent fortunes keeping underground. Now let me take you back to where this all begins. Let me take you back approximately 60 million years to the geological event that created this mineral. In what is now the central region of the state of Utah, a massive volcanic eruption released an enormous ash cloud into the atmosphere. That ash cloud drifted eastward and settled onto the floor of an ancient inland seabed that covered much of the interior of North America. The volcanic ash contained over 70 trace mineral compounds: silica, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, copper, and dozens of others from the Earth's deep mantle. As the ash settled into the seabed, it was compressed over millions of years into a distinct geological layer of soft, chalky mineral rock. That deposit is what miners in central Utah began extracting in the early 20th century. But this knowledge is not a modern discovery. Let me take you to the Fertile Crescent 4,000 years ago. The world's most productive agricultural civilization wasn't built on rich natural soil. Much of the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers is semi-arid and rocky. Yet Mesopotamian farmers consistently produced massive grain surpluses. Mesopotamian farmers used these surpluses to support city populations of hundreds of thousands, fund monuments, and survive devastating multi-year drought cycles. Sumerian cuneiform tablets from Nippur, dated to 2100 BC, describe a soil treatment practice using crushed volcanic stone from the Zagros mountain foothills. The tablets describe ground volcanic material as something that makes the soil remember what it once knew, a phrase that makes complete chemical sense today. Persian agricultural manuals from the Sassanid period describe the application of volcanic rock dust from Alborz mountain deposits to agricultural terraces. Chinese agricultural texts from the Han Dynasty describe crushed volcanic stone from the Yellow River Basin applied to paddy fields, showing declining productivity. In South America, Incan agricultural engineers incorporated volcanic rock dust into their remarkable terraced farming systems, the Andines. These systems produced enough food to feed 12 million people at high altitude on land, otherwise classified as agriculturally marginal. The convergence is not coincidental. Every civilization that had access to volcanic deposits and paid attention to their soil recognized the same pattern. Ground volcanic rock applied to exhausted soil does not merely add nutrients, it rebuilds the entire mineral foundation of the biological ecosystem. Now let me show you exactly why this works, because the science explains something that the fertilizer industry has spent a century desperately hoping you would never think to ask. Modern industrial agriculture operates on a framework called the NPK model: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. 3 macronutrients that plants consume in the largest quantities, and that show the most immediate visible response when added to depleted soil. Apply nitrogen to a struggling crop, and within days the leaves green up and growth accelerates. The visual feedback is immediate and dramatic. The NPK model is correct as far as it goes. Plants do need nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in substantial quantities. But here is what the fertilizer industry's entire economic model depends on. You never asking, what else does a plant need? The honest answer is sobering. Plants require 17 essential nutrients for complete biological function. 3 of those nutrients, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, come from air and water. 3 more, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, are addressed by NPK fertilizers. That leaves 11 essential mineral nutrients: calcium, magnesium, sulfur, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, boron, molybdenum, chlorine, and nickel that NPK fertilizers do not replace. Beyond those 11, plants and the soil microbiome use dozens of additional trace minerals, including selenium, cobalt, silicon, vanadium, and others. These influence plant health disease resistance, nutritional density, and long-term soil biological vitality in measurable ways. Natural, undisturbed soil built over centuries of geological weathering and biological activity contains all 17 essential nutrients, plus dozens of trace minerals. One season of intensive monoculture farming removes measurable quantities of all of these minerals from the soil profile. NPK fertilizer replaces 3 of them. The other 14 to 60 plus are removed again the following season and again the season after that. After decades of intensive NPK-dependent farming, American agricultural soils have been so thoroughly stripped of trace mineral content. The nutritional density of commercially grown vegetables has declined measurably since the 1950s. A 2004 study compared USDA data from 1950 and 1999 for 43 crops and found declines in protein, calcium, iron, and vitamin C. The food looks the same. The yield numbers look the same. The mineral content is not the same. Azomite and other volcanic rock mineral deposits work because they contain the full spectrum of minerals that geological weathering has been removing. A single application of volcanic mineral dust returns 70 or more trace minerals to the soil profile simultaneously. These are the actual geological compounds that soil biology evolved to process over millions of years. The soil microbiome, the billions of microorganisms per teaspoon of soil, responds by expanding population density and diversity. A 2019 study showed treated plots had 47% higher microbial biomass by year 1 and 89% higher by year 3. That population processes organic matter more efficiently and makes existing soil nutrients more bioavailable to plant roots. The volcanic mineral dust does not just add minerals, it rebuilds the living biological system that makes minerals accessible. One application, 70 minerals, a decade of effect, and a bag costs $2 per pound at agricultural suppliers, while the mainstream industry keeps shelves filled with NPK bags that need to be repurchased every single season. Choose full spectrum minerals for truly healthy soil and nutrient-dense food. Start rebuilding your soil's biological engine today. Now here is where the story takes the turn they have always hoped you would never reach. The global fertilizer industry generates over $200 billion in annual revenue. The consumer lawn and garden fertilizer segment in the United States alone generates approximately $12 billion per year. Every single dollar of that revenue depends on one fundamental principle that the industry has embedded so deeply into modern agricultural thinking, that most gardeners accept it as a law of nature, that soil fertility is a temporary condition that requires constant external inputs purchased from a supplier. Think about that model for a moment. You buy fertilizer every spring. You apply it. The plants grow, the season ends, the soil is depleted again. You buy fertilizer next spring, the cycle never ends, because the product was designed to address symptoms, not causes. NPK fertilizer is the agricultural equivalent of a sugar rush. It delivers an immediate, visible result. It does not rebuild the underlying system. And because it does not rebuild the underlying system continues to degrade with each passing season, making the soil progressively more dependent on higher and higher external fertilizer inputs to produce the same yields. Agronomists call this the fertilizer treadmill. Soil that has been farmed with NPK-only inputs for 30 years requires significantly more fertilizer per acre to produce the same yield as soil that was farmed the same way for 10 years, because the biological and mineral capital of the soil has been continuously extracted. The fertilizer treadmill is not an unintended consequence. It is the business model. A soil amendment that costs $2 per pound, requires one application per decade, rebuilds 70 minerals simultaneously, expands the soil microbiome without any further input, and progressively reduces the soil's dependence on external fertilizer. Purchases is not a product the industry can build a revenue model around. It is an existential threat to the entire dependency cycle their industry was built to perpetuate. Azomite cannot be patented. It is a mined geological deposit. The mineral composition cannot be trademarked. The application method is so simple that a 10-year-old can do it correctly. You cannot create a subscription model for a volcanic mineral that lasts 10 years per application. You cannot build a $200 billion industry around something that makes its own market progressively smaller every time it is used successfully. So the industry did what industries always do. It did not attempt to disprove the science because the science is well documented and impossible to credibly attack. It controlled the retail channel. Walk into any major garden center chain in the United States today. Count the shelf space dedicated to NPK fertilizers, synthetic soil conditioners, and proprietary branded plant food products. Then count the shelf space dedicated to volcanic mineral amendments. The ratio is not accidental. It is a purchasing and shelf placement strategy executed by an industry that knows exactly what it is doing. But here is what the fertilizer industry could not suppress, because the organic farming community never stopped using it. Certified organic agricultural operations across the United States, Europe, and Australia have used volcanic rock mineral amendments, including azomite, as a standard practice. Volcanic mineral dust qualifies under USDA organic certification standards as a naturally mined, minimally processed soil amendment with no synthetic chemical content. The academic literature on volcanic rock dust soil amendment is extensive, peer-reviewed, and consistently positive. A landmark study by the University of Hanover in 2007 measured crop yields, soil mineral content, and disease resistance across paired plots over 4 years. The treated plots showed average yield increases of 34% for wheat, 67% for potatoes, and 89% for leafy vegetables compared to untreated controls. The treated plots also showed measurably improved resistance to fungal disease and pest pressure. Not slightly improved, measurably and statistically significantly improved. Trials in Brazil showed that volcanic rock dust applied to severely degraded tropical soils restored productive soil biological activity within 2 growing seasons. Modern NPK fertilizers cannot rehabilitate this exhausted land economically, but these soils were suddenly producing viable yields once again. The Scottish government funded a research program in 2018 examining volcanic basalt rock dust application across highland farming operations. Preliminary results showed consistent soil carbon increases, trace mineral restoration, and yield improvements averaging between 20 and 40% across crop types. The DIY gardening community has been running its own independent experiments for years, reporting consistent results on homesteading forums across the internet. A market gardener in Vermont documented an azomite trial in 2017 on a half-acre vegetable plot with documented trace mineral deficiency. After a single application of azomite, his soil test results showed measurable increases in zinc, manganese, boron, selenium, and 7 other trace minerals. His reported yields increased by 40% for root vegetables and 55% for brassicas compared to pre-treatment averages. His fertilizer expenditure dropped by 60% because the soil biological activity made his existing NPK inputs work dramatically more efficiently. The knowledge is not theoretical. It is not fringe. It is sitting in peer-reviewed journals and organic farming certification databases, and it is found in the lived experience of every gardener who applied it and watched their soil respond. Here is exactly what to do. And I want you to understand just how simple this is, because the simplicity is the point. Everything the fertilizer industry sells you as complex and requiring ongoing expert guidance can be replaced, for most home garden applications, with a single mineral application that any person can complete in an afternoon. Here's what you need. Number 1, azomite powder or granular, or any food-grade volcanic rock dust from a reputable agricultural supplier. Azomite is the most widely documented brand and is available from agricultural suppliers, organic farming supply companies, and online retailers. A 44-pound bag costs between $25 and $35 and treats approximately $1,000 to 2,000 square feet of garden space. Number 2, a soil test from your county extension office or an online soil testing service. A basic soil test costs between $15 and $30 and tells you the existing mineral profile of your soil. This step is not strictly required for the amendment to work, but it gives you documented evidence of the transformation. Number 3, a spreader, a wheelbarrow, or simply a garden trowel for smaller areas. No specialized equipment is required. Here is the application process. For new garden beds, apply azomite at a rate of approximately 1 pound per 10 square feet. For established beds lacking nutritional density, apply at half that rate, roughly half a pound per 10 square feet. For potted plants and container gardens, add 1 teaspoon per gallon of potting mix at planting time. Work the mineral powder into the top 4 to 6 inches of soil using a garden fork or tiller. Water the amended area thoroughly after application. That is the entire process. No mixing, no dissolving, no timing windows, no safety equipment beyond avoiding inhalation of the dust during application. Water the area well and let the soil biology do the work. Within 1 growing season, you will observe changes. Root vegetables develop better color and flavor because trace minerals influence carbohydrate metabolism in root tissue. Leafy vegetables show darker green coloration because magnesium and iron availability directly influences chlorophyll production. Fruiting vegetables and berries develop measurably higher sugar content because selenium and molybdenum play direct roles in enzymatic pathways. Fruit that tastes better is not a subjective outcome. It is a measurable increase in Brix. Soil amended with volcanic minerals consistently shows higher Brix readings compared to NPK-only soil. Apply once. Test your soil 2 growing seasons later. The mineral profile and biological activity will have changed. Total investment for treating a standard garden, approximately $35 in azomite once, with no reapplication for 5 to 10 years. The fertilizer industry sells you NPK products every single spring while your soil continues to degrade. The volcanic deposit does not care about that business model. It has been waiting in the ground for 60 million years. It will still be there when the industry that ignored it is not. Some knowledge does not disappear because it failed. It disappears because the economic system built to replace it cannot survive if the knowledge becomes common. The Sumerian farmers who ground volcanic stone from the Zagros foothills and worked it into their fields along the Euphrates 4,000 years ago were not soil scientists. They were not geochemists or microbiologists. They were people who paid attention to what the earth told them when they listened carefully enough. They noticed that the fields near volcanic rock outcroppings produced differently than the fields far from them. They noticed that the soil treated with crushed volcanic stone did not exhaust the way the untreated soil did. They passed that observation forward through generations, until it became embedded in the agricultural knowledge of an entire civilization. The deposit that makes this possible was created 60 million years ago by a volcanic event so large that it reshaped the geology of an entire continent. The minerals compressed into that deposit have not changed. The chemistry has not changed. The biological response of soil and root and microorganism to those minerals has not changed in 60 million years of continuous evolutionary refinement. The fertilizer treadmill has been running for about 80 years. The volcanic mineral has been waiting 60 million, one application. $2 per pound, 70 minerals, a decade of effect. A soil that progressively requires less external input because it has been given back what was taken from it, not substituted for. Your great-grandparents grew food in soil that had never been stripped of its mineral foundation by industrial agriculture. The food they grew from that soil had a nutritional density that modern commercially grown vegetables cannot match by any measured standard. That is not nostalgia. That is documented in the scientific literature that the fertilizer industry hopes you never read. The mineral that rebuilds what was taken costs $2 per pound. It is sitting in agricultural supply stores right now in the back corner of the shelf. You just needed someone to tell you it was there. If this vault changed how you look at the soil, subscribe and share this with someone who has been buying fertilizer for 20 years. Every share keeps this knowledge alive. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is the one method that every pharmaceutical company has worked to remove from your awareness.